right. Well, good morning. Glad to be with you guys this morning. Appreciate you tuning in. Just one quick note: if you missed the men's breakfast last Saturday, Saturday before last, you missed a good time with the men. Want to encourage you. We will do that again the first Saturday in May. So mark your calendars for that. Good time of fellowship. We are in Esther chapter 3. And one thing that we looked at last week was this. Uh, we don't like it when bad gets rewarded. We don't like it when um, evil gets rewarded. When somebody's at the workplace and they're the ones that always cause trouble and they're the ones that always, we don't, we don't like it when they get the promotion when we're the ones that show up and work and do our jobs and we just struggle with that. Well, that's what you're seeing in Esther chapter 3. Bad is going to be rewarded. Last week we were introduced to a man by the name of Haman. We don't know exactly where Haman came from, but we just know Haman got promoted. Uh, Haman's means magnificent. That's what Haman's name means, magnificent. But the key thing is he was promoted, and the Bible says in verse 1 is that his seat was set above all the princes who were with him. And verse 2 says, and all the king's servants who were within the king's gate bowed and paid homage to Haman, for so the king had commanded concerning him. So what you have here is you've got Haman being promoted almost to kind of like to a vice presidential position. Haman gets this promotion. Mordecai did not even get a pat on the back, a basket of fruit, or nothing for saving the king's life back in chapter 2. He didn't get nothing, but yet Haman gets promoted. We don't know if Haman was a confidant to the king or maybe one of the king's favorite officials. We don't know. All we know is that Haman is the one that gets promoted. But the key thing, and I shared this last week with you, and I won't go into that much detail, but in verse 1 is Haman's ancestry. Haman is an Agagite. And you can trace an Agagite. Agag was the king of the Amalekites. And you can trace the Amalekites all the way back to the Exodus, where the Jews are coming out of bondage and the Amalekites attack the Jews. And God says, I'm going to blot them out. I'm going to take care of them. I'm going to blot them out. When 1 Samuel 15, God tells King Saul, now's the time. I'm going to blot out the Amalekites. And he tells King Saul to attack them. And King Saul does just that. He goes and he attacks the Amalekites, but he don't do what God commands. He lets Agag live, the king of the Amalekites. Well, Samuel the prophet then comes in and says, you can't, what are you doing, Saul? God told you to take care of the Amalekites. What are you doing? And Samuel hacks Agag to pieces. He kills the king of the Amalekites. And why that is important is Haman is an Agagite. He's a descendant from Agag. Mordecai is a son of Kish. You see that in chapter 2. He's a Jew, the son of Kish. Kish is the father to King Saul. So what you have here between these two families is a lot of bad blood, and it's going to set up what you see in chapter 3. The king put an edict out. Anytime, verse 2, that Haman walked into the king's gate. Now, the king's gate would be where the officials would be. It's where judges would rule, would dole out judgments there. It would be government officials. When Haman would walk out, they would bow on their knees and bow their heads and pay homage to Haman. Now, we say, wow, why would they do it? Now, this was not worship. This was Persian court etiquette. They were not worshiping Haman. Xerxes was the king. If anyone was going to be worshipped, it would have been Xerxes. He wouldn't have let Haman been worshipped. This was Persian court etiquette. And what you have would be something like we have today with all rise if you went into a courtroom. But what we see in the Bible is that when Haman would walk to the king's gate, all these king's officials bowed and paid homage. Verse 2, but Mordecai would not bow and pay homage. Mordecai wouldn't do it. Mordecai refused. Believe it or not, a judge was disobeying the new law. Instead of keeping the law, this judge was breaking the law. This guy that had a position in the Persian government was disobeying a direct order of the king. So in verse 3, we see this. Then the king's servants who were within the king's gate said to Mordecai, "Why do you transgress the king's command?" You have Mordecai's co-workers coming up, and they're saying, "Mordecai, um, what's going on, buddy? Why are you doing this?" Mordecai, do you not hear about the new law? Mordecai, why, you know, did you not see us bowing and paying homage? Mordecai, you need to get with the program here. Um, you're disobeying a direct order from the king, Mordecai. Verse 3. Then the king's servants who were within the king's gate said to Mordecai, "Why do you transgress the king's command?" Now it happened when they spoke to him daily. This was just not a one-time occurrence. This was an everyday thing. Now we don't know how long it took, but the Bible says daily. So that's more than once. This was just not a one-time thing. So every day as Haman would walk through the king's court and these officials would bow down to pay homage, Mordecai would stand up and wouldn't do it. He refused to bow down. And every time after it was over, these co-workers of his would come and say, "Mordecai, what are you doing? Mordecai, this could cost you your job as a judge or an official in Persia. Mordecai, this is going to affect your paycheck. Mordecai, the king could kill you for this. What's going on here, Mordecai? What, uh, what, what are you doing? Get with the program." And they were urging him and urging him and urging him like a co-worker would do. And look what the Bible says in verse 4. And he would not listen to them. So as every day when Mordecai would refuse to bow down, his co-workers would come and try to figure out, "Hey, come on, Mordecai, come on, you're a judge, Mordecai. You've got to get with the program here." Mordecai wouldn't listen to them. Now here's the amazing thing to me. This fascinates me. The Bible says this happened daily. So that means this happened more than once. We don't know if it happened a week, happened 2 or 3 days. We don't know, but it happened daily. Think about something. If you was in a room and somebody was walked in that was to bow down and pay homage. And the whole room, when they walked in, that whole room bowed on their knees and paid homage, but you didn't. You would kind of stick out like a sore thumb. Haman never noticed Mordecai. All these people that's down on their knees, all these people that are bowing, you would think Haman would notice the one guy that's standing straight up, but he don't. Haman the Magnificent is too busy being magnified. He is too busy enjoying all this attention. You would think that Haman would see this man refusing to bow and pay homage to him. You would think that he would notice that out of his eye and begin to say, "Hey, who is this? Why ain't they obeying the new edict? Why aren't they obeying the law?" But he don't. He never sees, he never pays attention to Mordecai. He is pride, he is prideful, he is too busy enjoying being magnified. So he don't ever notice Mordecai. That fascinates me. That just absolutely fascinates me. Well, we get to the rest of verse 4, and the co-workers that have come and talked to Mordecai about doing the law, obeying the law, about, "Hey, you need to get with the program." And when Mordecai wouldn't listen, finally they do what co-workers do. They go tell the boss. Look in verse 4. It says, "Now it happened when they spoke to him daily, and he would not listen to them, that they told Haman." So they go and tell Haman, they say, "Haman, there's this guy by the name of Mordecai, and he is not bowing and paying homage to you." Why? Can't you imagine? I haven't seen it. Well, it's happened. All you got to do is you come the next day to the king's gate, and you will see Mordecai. He was not doing his job. He is not obeying the edict of King Xerxes. He is not obeying the law. And as we all would do, we would say, "Why?" And I'm sure that's what Haman asked. "Well, has he told you why that he's not doing the king's law, why he's not obeying the king's edict. Look what verse 4 says. It says this, when they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's words would stand. Well, Mordecai had told them he was a Jew. Mordecai tells his co-workers, I cannot bow down and pay homage to Haman because I'm a Jew. He does the direct opposite of what he has told Esther to do in chapter 2. If you remember, Esther is there, and he keeps telling Esther, he says, do not reveal your family. Not only do not reveal your family, but don't reveal your people. Don't tell them you're a Jew. Mordecai tells them he's a Jew. He does exactly the opposite of what he tells Esther to do. He says, I can't because I'm a Jew. Now, I've got a question for you. The question I have is this. Is this conviction of Mordecai, or is it prejudice? Let me explain. As we've been going through this book of Esther, I explained to you the Jews were already allowed to go back by Xerxes' father. In fact, Xerxes' father said this. He said, look, you go back, you build the temple, you rebuild the walls. In fact, I'll give you everything that Nebuchadnezzar took out of the temple. I'll give it back. And on top of that, I'll pay for it. And only a handful of Jews go back. Out of all the Jews in exile, only a handful go back. Well, the rest stay in Babylon, Persia, and everywhere else. Why? Well, think about it. They've been in captivity all these years. They have jobs. They have started businesses. They have become accustomed to the Persian way of life, the Babylonian way of life. They have had children who's had grandchildren. And these Jews sit here and go, why would I want to go back and build a ruined, broken temple in a city that's been ransacked when I've got it pretty good here in Shushan? I've got it pretty good here in Babylon. I've got a good job. My family's here. My grandchildren's here. I think I'll just stay. So they disobey and they don't go home. Mordecai is one of these Jews that did not leave. So is it conviction? Is it Mordecai saying, I'm a Jew, I can't bow down and pay homage to Haman? Is it conviction? There's one of these days where people are going to have to take a stand for what they believe in. There's going to come a time in your life when you are going to have to take a stand for who you are as a follower in Jesus Christ. Is that what is going on with Mordecai? Or is it prejudice? Haman was an Agagite. Mordecai was a Jew, the son of Kish. There's a lot of bad blood there. Think about this. Mordecai has begun to conform to the Persian way of life. He has made his way all the way up to be an official of the Persian court. Think about it this way. As we as believers 20 years ago, when we would see a same-sex couple on a TV, we would turn the channel immediately. Well, now they're on pretty much every commercial, and we're so callous to it that we don't even think about it. Well, think of Haman, or think of Mordecai. Here's Mordecai. He started probably out keeping the dietary law. He probably started out keeping the laws of Moses, the laws of God. But as time went on, he's begun to conform to the Persian way of life. And as he's sitting there, he's worked his way up. Now, he is literally a government official for Xerxes. We are not, first of all, there's no wrong answer, whether it's prejudice or whether it's conviction. We are not told. There's no wrong answer here. I can tell you this. I'm afraid that it's prejudice. It may be a little of both. Um, I think it's because their ancestry has played a part in this. I think it's because Haman's an Agagite and Mordecai's a Jew, the son of Kish. Um, as we look at this and we dive deeper, you see Mordecai. We're not given a reason. Something might have happened before this that Mordecai would not bow. All we see is Mordecai refused to bow and pay homage. So that's my question to you this week. Do you think it's conviction, or do you think it's prejudice? Because next week we're going to see Haman's side, and I can promise you this: there's no conviction involved there. I'm glad you joined us this week. I hope you enjoy this. We'll be praying for you. We invite you to join us for Sunday school at 9 o'clock. Love to have you. God bless you. Thank you.